In this video, we're going to be breaking down my level 120 build that is focused purely on Dexterity. It's what I played the entire game through on day one with and what I use for PvP. You can see the stat breakdown on the screen here, and I'm just going to go over some of my choices. Of course, there's variations that you can use in this setup, but I'll just break down the reason that I went with my choices and some of the weapons that you want to use. So the reason that this build is so good is because it focuses very heavily on a lot of health, defense, and damage. And you're not worried about faith, intelligence, arcane. You're not really worried about strength, and you don't need any mind. Some of the issues at this lower level that you'll run into with these faith intelligence builds is that you also have to invest in your mind in order to get some real utilization out of that character. So this build allows you to stay at a low level and still get a lot of damage out. If you've watched the clips or the montage that I uploaded of the PvP fights, and there'll be more coming, you'll see that we do massive damage. We one-shot, two-shot a lot of opponents, and part of the reason is because we have the ability to power stance weapons of the same class. So if you have two Millennia swords, for example, instead of doing the R1, which is a single swipe, you do the L1 all the time, and you basically get two swipes out of the attack. And this is very good because these katanas are the longest in the game, I believe. Maybe the Nagakiba is longer, but for the damage, you get a lot of mileage out of these two katanas. And you can roll catch. The running L1 is very good. The standard L1 combo is very good as well. You can usually combo somebody to death if you hit them with just the first hit and you combo them out. I don't really use the weapon art on this weapon, but it can be useful in certain scenarios for invasions, not really in 1v1 duels where players are usually a little bit better. In that case, I will go with the Keen Uchi and a Millennia sword in my offhand. So again, you can see here how much longer the Millennia sword is, but the reason you want the Keen Uchi katana in your main hand is that you can use Bloodhound Step on it and then still have the damage and the range of the Millennia sword. You can see the damage we're outputting here. 573 with the Uchi, 614 with the Millennia sword. You can do all kinds of different things and change up the build to get a few more buffs. So for example, if you ended up rearranging your stats a little bit and say you wanted to go a little bit with Faith and Arcane, then you can start to utilize something like the Blood Flame Blade or any other kind of weapon buff. You can even use Greases, but you can see the damage goes to 618 on the Uchi now, and we have additional bleed on it. So that's the other thing with these builds. Dex, you have a lot of access to bleed weapons. Even though you're not arcane, you do bleed people quite quickly. Another very powerful setup is the dual spears. Usually you go with the cross naginatas, but you can do dual pikes if you can wield the strength, because the pikes are very, very long as well. Those are also a viable option. These things, though, again, you're going to want to put the Seppuku one in your offhand and the Bloodhound Step one in your main hand. Bloodhound Step right now is just busted. It's a kind of a must for PvP, especially if you're going up against ganks, just to be able to get extra range on your dodge, extra invincibility to get away from like a phantom and a host attacking you at the same time. If you roll, normally one of those will catch you. Even if you roll through one attack, the second person's attack will hit you on the follow-up. So this combo right here does a lot of damage. The extra bleed from the Seppuku is also very good. So this is another example of weapons you can power stance. There's also more things. I don't have the strength for it, but you could invest one more extra point in strength and use double sights or grave sights. You can also do the regular sights with this setup I have here because it has less strength requirement. But you need these on hand to get past the fingerprint shield builds because sights will go through the shield. So again, you have utility to beat other builds. Very good in that regard as well. So you do have a lot of weapon variety. You can use S-stocks, heavy thrusting swords, heavy regular swords. You can use, to some degree, great swords and daggers even for critical damage, so you can parry. You have access to like the bows and the crossbows, which can be very good as well. This is the triple shooting crossbow. So very, very powerful stuff overall. You have access to a lot of weapons, basically. And then the other thing that makes this build very good, both for story and PvP, is you have a lot of choices when it comes to armor. Unfortunately, the armor in this game isn't very good looking, so you're kind of forced to go with just whatever is the best poise to defense or poise defense to weight ratio, and that's most likely going to be the veteran's armor most of the time. So the setup that I usually go with is just the pure veteran armor set. You can see there I have 79 poise on the right hand of the screen. An alternative is you can use something like a different helm and go for the bull goat armor. Again, not the best looking, but it gives you more poise overall if you take a lighter helm and put on the heavier armor, because the difference between the bull goat and the veteran's armor is 10 poise, and you get more defense out of it as well. So I might run like this kind of setup as well if I'm looking to poise through attacks and get in my double L1s, or my double attack with the L1. As far as the talismans go, I usually will set up with the green turtle talisman. That's a staple across every build I make. Usually, I will also use the Erdtree Favor +2. There are probably better choices that you can make there, but that's just what I go with. And then I'll also do the Great Jar's Arsenal because I equip like heavy weapons, and so this will allow me to use heavy armor and heavy weapons without any stamina rolling disadvantage. So you can see the damage output, 600 basically for each cross Naginata. I'll sometimes enter the fight with the Crimson Amber Medallion, and so what this will allow you to do, I'm just going to equip some of my equipment here. What this will allow you to do is just before you start a fight, you'll probably be able to equip the Seppuku Cross Naginata, use the buff, and then swap out the Crimson Amber Medallion. So you can see my health is now down to 1520 from 1688. And I'll just swap this out for like the extra stamina, and I'll go from 144 to 165 stamina, and I'm only down 40 HP. So I start the fight without having to waste a flask, just in case, you get into those ganks where you need to heal and people are rushing you down and they're healing themselves. So this setup works for me. Again, you can choose whatever you want for your talismans. If you're going up against like double Rivers of Blood, you might want to use the Stalwart Horn Charm +1 to have extra resistance. You can see how much of an increase the bar gets when you equip that talisman. And I'll also usually just equip these items to alleviate the blood loss as well, to help with any blood builds that I'm going up against. So it can be very effective overall. Some other choices, you can go with the Prosthesis to increase damage. You can see we go from 599 to 613 when we equip that, and with the Seppuku buff we go to 643 on the offhand one. And you can go with like the blood loss boost. If you trigger the blood loss, you get a boost as well. This might be good more for PvE where you're fighting multiple enemies. So you have a lot of variety here. Obviously, you can take a lot of hits because you're very tanky and you have a lot of HP. You can deal a ton of damage, as you've seen in the clips that I've uploaded. If you watch those, I'll link it in the description again. But for me, this is a really solid all-around build. You can beat technically every build in the game that you go up against. You can beat ganks, again, as you've seen in the video that I uploaded. And it's very good for PvE. All the videos on my channel that I uploaded are all based on this build. I beat the game very comfortably with this build. Ran into very little problems. And the way that I play, I don't play, to be perfect. I just try to beat things quickly. So I'll take damage. I'll take the hits if I can get my hit in. I don't really care. You heal. You just try to beat the boss as fast as possible. And so you can do that with this build. You don't have to play super cautious and worry about the boss one-shotting you or two-shotting you in most cases. And again, you're at a low level that you can do a lot of PvP. I know people say you can go up to 150, but with this build, you don't need to. So the Vigor and the Endurance are the main things that you level up. I start with the Vagabond class as well, just by the way. You can start with the Hero class. It might be better since you will go to 16 strength, so you can wield the Cross Naginatas and the Millennia Sword. But then from there, you just pump your dex to like 70, 80, whatever you want. You can, again, change around how much you invest in Dexterity, Endurance, and Vigor. Up to you. You kind of want at least 40 Vigor though, so that you can have the kind of the soft cap, air quotes, on the health. And then I would guess probably 30 Endurance at the very least. I went with a little bit more to have a little bit more flexibility with the armor and more stamina. And then you just pump everything into Dexterity. So not the most exciting build, but very, very effective and very, very powerful. When you first start Elden Ring, if you really want to experience the game and not like do those overpowered early things, which is kind of stupid, you just go with Vigor and Endurance and either Strength or Dexterity, and you will have no problem beating this game. So very, very good build overall, and that's kind of the breakdown. Again, you can use a number of different weapons too if you want to mix it up. I'll probably use different weapons in PvP, but right now the PvP scene is a little weird, so hopefully FromSoft comes up with a good patch to balance some things out. But if you've enjoyed this video, I would appreciate a like, and if you want to see anything else, let me know. Thank you for watching, guys. Quantum is out.